You finally have done something that I've asked for.
Oh, he almost got him up. Oh, is he a proud individual?
In professional wrestling, betrayal is currency. Some knives are written into the script, others are pulled in hallways, offices, and locker rooms, then argued about for decades. Hulk Hogan spent 40 years as the industry's biggest star and its most polarizing political force. And the stories attached to his name rarely agree on who held the blade. After his death in July 2025, those arguments did not settle, they hardened. The men most often tied to Hogan's world of turncoats and paybacks were not a neat list he ever published. They were the 10 names that keep resurfacing whenever fans, colleagues, and documentaries ask the same uncomfortable question. When someone stabbed Hogan in the back, was Hogan the victim, the author of the cut, or both at once? The earliest chapter was not a TV angle, it was labor. In the weeks before WrestleMania 2 in 1986, Jesse Ventura tried to organize WWF wrestlers around collective leverage, health insurance, and pension security in a business that treated most talent as disposable. According to multiple accounts, including Hogan's own later admission, Hogan went straight to Vince McMahon and warned him that Ventura was stirring a walkout threat. McMahon crushed the meeting with individual calls and job threats. Years later, Ventura said Hogan cut his legs out from under him, ratted him out, and cost him his job. On the Netflix series Mr. McMahon, Hogan did not deny the core act. He said he was on Vince's team all the way, that Jesse was trying to start a union and undermine the boss, and that he made sure McMahon knew. If the title of the story is Who Stabbed Hogan, Ventura does not fit. This was Hogan choosing the company over the locker room. Months later, television delivered a betrayal fans could cheer or boo on cue. In the summer of 1986, Paul Orndorff had been sold as Hogan's ally after years as a top heel. The storyline soured when the crowd would not stop chanting for Hulk. On July 19th, during tag team action against King Kong Bundy and Big John Studd, Orndorff turned, attacked Hogan, and drifted into Bobby Heenan's orbit. The angle framed a simple motive: Mr. Wonderful refused to live in someone else's shadow. The program paid off at the big event in Toronto that August, a stadium show that drew a massive outdoor crowd and ran through the rest of the year. It was pure kayfabe friendship destroyed for money, and it worked because Hulkamania already taught audiences that trust was temporary. Early 1987 raised the stakes with Andre the Giant. After trophy presentations that left Andre looking diminished beside Hogan's 3-year championship reign, the storyline turned cold. On Piper's Pit in February, Andre arrived with Heenan, challenged Hogan for WrestleMania 3, and tore the shirt and crucifix from Hogan's body. The contract segments sold jealousy and pride, an undefeated Giant tired of standing behind the face of the company. At the Pontiac Silverdome on March 29th, Hogan body slammed Andre and pinned him in a finish that defined a generation. Historians still argue the exact attendance figure long advertised as a stadium record. What is not argued is the nature of the turn. Andre's betrayal was written, rehearsed, and immortal. Real-life questions about Andre's health and willingness to lose only deepened the myth. They did not make the shirt-ripping segment a backstage snitch job. 2 years later, jealousy returned with a wedding ring attached. Hogan and Randy Savage had formed the Mega Powers, managed by Miss Elizabeth Savage's real-life wife until their divorce in 1992. On February 3, 1989, on NBC's The Main Event 2 in Milwaukee, the partnership exploded. After Akeem threw Savage into Elizabeth and Hogan carried her to the back, Savage slapped Hogan on the tag, hit him with the title belt, and ended the team. The storyline said Savage believed Hogan lusted after Elizabeth and resented sharing the spotlight. At WrestleMania V, Hogan took the WWF Championship from Savage when the Mega Powers fully detonated on pay-per-view. Peers later described Savage's jealousy as a genuine personality trait, and real distrust between the two men ran for decades. Rumors about Elizabeth and Hogan remain allegation territory, not proven fact. On screen, Savage was the man who turned. Off-screen, the rivalry was mutual, personal, and never settled by a single confession. By late 1991, the pattern flipped again. At Survivor Series in Detroit on November 27th, The Undertaker, only 26, beat Hogan for the WWF Championship with help from Ric Flair and a tombstone that put Hogan's head toward a chair. Backstage, Hogan claimed a serious neck injury. According to Undertaker's later account on Cheap Heat, he had been warned all day about Hogan's neck, protected the move carefully, and was told afterward that Hogan's head never came close to the mat. When Undertaker confronted him after watching the tape, Hogan's explanation shifted. The hold had been so tight he could not move, and that jam hurt him. Undertaker's verdict was blunt. He knew then what Hogan was about. Days later at this Tuesday in Texas, Hogan regained the title. Tape analysis and contemporary discussion have largely backed Undertaker's version that the head did not strike as claimed. Whether Hogan exaggerated for politics, felt a real jolt from the knees, or both, the lasting story from the young champion was not that he stabbed Hogan. It was that Hogan hung him out to dry. Royal Rumble 1992 made the audience the jury, with the vacant WWF title on the line. Sid Justice legally eliminated Hogan from behind. Already eliminated. Hogan grabbed Sid's arm from outside the ring so Ric Flair could dump Sid and win. Crowds cheered Sid for tossing Hogan and booed the interference. The build to WrestleMania 8 sold Sid's line that every man was for himself, and that Hogan had acted like a sore loser. Hogan beat Sid by disqualification in Indianapolis after outside interference, and the Ultimate Warrior returned to clean house. The Rumble finish was storyline politics made visible, but the boos were real steroid-era fatigue landing on the company's biggest babyface. Then came the torch that never got handed. On April 4th, 1993, at WrestleMania 9 in Las Vegas, Yokozuna beat Bret Hart for the WWF Championship after Mr. Fuji's salt. Minutes later, Hogan accepted Fuji's challenge and pinned Yokozuna to become champion again. Bret's account, repeated in his autobiography and in the later Netflix documentary Hulk Hogan, Real American, was that Vince McMahon promised him the belt back from Hogan at SummerSlam, then said Hogan refused because Bret was not in his league. Bret called the Mania finish a phony match of the kind Hulk would dream up, and eventually labeled Hogan a backstabbing, knife-wielding piece of shit. Hogan's counter story was that the plan was always to beat Yokozuna at Mania, drop the title back at the next big show, and leave, and that Vince told different men different things. So Hogan looked like the villain. Hogan also admitted he may have said behind closed doors that Bret was not a main event guy yet, that his perception was still tag team and intercontinental level. Bruce Pritchard later confirmed real creative interest in a Hogan-Bret SummerSlam after a Halifax photo shoot of the two pulling on the belt. On June 13th at King of the Ring, Hogan lost the title back to Yokozuna. Bret won the tournament. SummerSlam's main event went to Lex Luger versus Yokozuna. The dream match never happened. Who refused, who remains contested. What is clear is that Bret's lifelong narrative casts Hogan as the man who stole his moment, not the man Bret betrayed. 3 years later in WCW, the industry's most famous heel turn inverted every trust angle Hogan had been selling. Through the mid-90s, storylines sometimes painted Sting as unreliable even as Sting saved Hogan on TV. That irony collapsed on July 7, 1996, at Bash at the Beach in Daytona Beach. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, the Outsiders, needed a third man against Sting, Lex Luger, and Randy Savage. Hogan walked out, leg-dropped Savage, and joined them. Trash filled the ring. In the Mean Gene interview that followed, Hogan told the crowd to shut up if they wanted to hear him, declared that what they were seeing was the future of wrestling, and named it the New World Order of Wrestling. Hollywood Hogan was born. Sting spent years as the Crow-era Avenger trying to reclaim WCW's soul. In that chapter, Sting was not the backstabber. Hogan was the third man who put a company on its back. When the NWO finally arrived in WWE in February 2002, another dream match died in the back. Rock vs. Hollywood Hogan became the Icon vs. Icon main attraction at WrestleMania X8 in Toronto. Austin vs. Hogan never happened. Jim Ross later said Austin declined because he did not think they had chemistry and feared a bad Mania match, that it was about perfectionism, not primarily the finish. Hogan described legitimate business heat after the NWO return. Hall, Nash, and Hogan were getting cheered, while Austin and Rock complained the babyfaces were being turned upside down and booed. Style clash and distrust of Hogan's politics circulate in locker room lore. What is documented is simpler. Austin said no. Rock said yes. And the generational Collision fans wanted never got booked as a singles match. The last major chapter on the list returned to creative control. In 2005, after WrestleMania 21 and a brief partnership, Shawn Michaels superkicked Hogan on Raw and turned the program heel. Contemporary reports said Michaels wanted a multi-match series. He wins one, Hogan wins one, or a longer arc ending with Hogan over. Hogan, with contractual creative control, insisted on one match and a clean win with the leg drop. At SummerSlam on August 21st in Washington, D.C., Hogan beat Michaels in about 21 minutes. Michaels sold every basic move like a cartoon, especially the big boot in what became infamous as malicious compliance. He later admitted the display was not professional while framing some of the exaggeration as heel work. Before the match, he had mocked Hogan's reality show on Raw, Hogan Knows Best. What was Hogan going to do when reality kicked him in the face? The pay-per-view did strong business. The program effectively ended with a handshake. On screen, Michaels was the betrayer who superkicked a partner. Behind the curtain, the fight was over who controlled the finish and who would look like a clown. Line those 10 stories up and the title stops being simple. Orndorff, Andre Savage, and Sid turned on Hogan because writers needed heat and stadiums needed villains. Michaels turned on camera and then weaponized the selling when politics closed every other door. Sting's supposed unreliability was a storyline tease that Hogan himself made obsolete the night he joined the Outsiders. Ventura's union died because Hogan chose McMahon. Brett left 1993 believing the torch had been yanked. Undertaker left Survivor Series believing a young champion had been framed by an injury claim the tape did not support. Austin walked away from a Mania match that might have defined two eras. Hogan never issued an official top 10 of men who stabbed him. The list survives because wrestling never separates performance from power. Some of those men really did turn on him under the lights. Others spent careers arguing that the most successful American wrestler of the 20th century built his longevity on creative control, selective memory, and a direct line to the boss. Both versions can be true in the same career. That is why the phrase still sells, why the Netflix interviews still sting, and why, long after the red and yellow faded, the question of who betrayed whom remains the real main event.